Everyone is talking about the stock market correction, which feels like a crash, and the potential bear market we're about to go into. They're full of FUD and panic. But what have I told you? This is one of those rare moments that only happen a handful of times in your lifetime where a single decision can set you up for life. It's not that the one decision will do it. It's the decision and to set yourself up in terms of the behavior you need to be making. I shit you not, while the rest of the world is losing their minds and panic selling. Play this right and you'll be one of the few big stock market winners in 2025. Before I share exactly how to do that, I want to remind you guys that I don't know what's going to happen this year. It could be 2025. We could rebound from here, go to all new highs. Anybody who says otherwise is wrong. Now, there are trends to look at? Sure. And this year has been off to a rocky start, but it started out pretty well. Guys, I was the same 25 years ago. I remember lying in bed during the dot-com crash going, oh my gosh, all this money is going away. This is terrible. But remember what Morgan Housel always says. Every past bear market and crash looks like an opportunity. Every future one feels like a risk. And nothing in this world, and I really mean nothing, will teach you more about investing than going through a market crash. You can read all the books, watch all the videos, but until you felt that gut punch of a stock market correction, you won't truly get it. I lived through the dot-com crash, and during the financial crisis, I was a totally different person. I was scared in the dot-com crash. I was excited in the financial crisis. If you see me on Instagram during COVID, there are pictures of me kissing the computer monitor at -7, -8% days. I know what it's like to watch stocks plummet while everyone panics, and I know what it's like to watch stocks skyrocket, everybody jump on the hype train, and I stay out. Staying disciplined, focusing on valuations, and ignoring the noise is what builds wealth, real wealth in the long run. And here's the kicker. Mastering these lessons can add an extra 2% or more to your return. Sounds small? It does sound small, but over decades, that's the difference between comfortable and being a multimillionaire. If you have $1.5 million in savings and you're able to add 2% a year, that adds millions of dollars to your returns over decades. So when the market's crashing, and everyone else is losing their mind, ask yourself one question. Are you the panic seller or are you the one buying from those panic sellers? That answer alone will define your wealth. Now, I always tell people, the retail investor buys at the wrong time and sells at the wrong time. The story I always give is back in 06 and 07. I met with two friends of mine. They sat me down in 06 and said, hey, we want to save for retirement. That time we were 24, 25 years old. I said, great, guys, let me ask you a question. Not knowing what was going to happen in the future, I just said, if stocks were to fall in half tomorrow, what would you do? They looked at each other and the wife looked at me and said, we'd buy more, right? I said, perfect. You get it. This is great. You're going to do awesome. Fast forward 2.5 years. I get an email from the wife. Paul, what are you doing? I'm like, well, we talked about this. When stocks fall, I buy more. You're actually buying more? Well, yeah, that's what we talked about. Oh, I don't know. The world's falling apart. The stock market, I'm just worried it's going to go to zero. I'm like, go to zero? The entire stock market? That's not going to happen. Since then, I wish I'd said one other thing to her. If the stock market goes to zero, what does our world look like? And of course, she would have said anarchy, chaos, nothing, money wouldn't have mattered. I'm like, well, then you might as well be buying while it's falling, going to zero. Because if money's going to mean nothing anyhow, it either goes to zero and it's worth zero, or you put the money towards the stock market and it rebounds because that's what always happens. Investors are their own worst enemy. And don't forget, this is the same person that 2.5 years before, not talking about a single stock, talking about the entire stock market, I asked them specifically, if it fell by 50%, what would you do? Since 1984, 70% of investor underperformance happened in just 10 key market downturns. Why is that? Because people panic and they sell at the worst time. And they wait for things to look rosy before they buy back in. And this is what explains this right here. Guys, average equity investor over a 30-year period makes 3% a year, while the S&P does 9.96. 20-year period, 4.25 versus 6. 10-year period, 9.43 versus 13.56. Are you seeing a pattern here? The pattern is very clear. People are their own worst enemy. This is why we always preach dollar cost averaging into low cost ETFs and not thinking about it. Now, of course, you're probably better than that. You should still dollar cost average into low cost ETFs like I do, like a lot of wealthy people do. But if you want to buy great companies at great prices, you need to have the emotional fortitude that gives you the ability to go buy stocks, go buy great companies when they're falling. In a 2022 report, 8 out of 10 cases of doing nothing beats selling. A simple buy and hold strategy crushed the average retail investor's by thousands in just a few years. And yet investors keep making the same mistakes over and over. In 2019, retail investors guessed the market right only 25% of the time. Guys, that's worse than flipping a freaking coin. Guys, I've been through this. Some of you might have been through this in the past as well. This pattern repeats over and over. Market crashes are Black Friday sales for stocks, yet most people sprint for the exits instead of loading up their carts. But ahead of time, during market booms, when you ask them, what would you do? I'll just buy more. But there's always a story later that'll tell you why you should sell. So guys, the market historically has done between 9 and 10% with dividends, but most retail investors are stuck in the 4 to 6% range. That's a 3 to 6% difference. Let me show you how much that can cost you in the long run, just on the 3% difference number. I'm gonna pull up our retirement calculator and it's gonna be very eye-opening. So here are my assumptions. And guys, these are just generic assumptions I'm making. Age 35, retiring at 65, you have $100,000 in savings and you add $10,000 a year. That's the general idea, and you're making 9.5% returns. At the age of 65, you will have $3.96 million. $4 million bucks, plenty of money. And this is what I was saying earlier about how it costs you millions. Let's go take this 9.5%. Let's just take it down to 6%. Okay, let's see what it takes it to. The 3.96 million is now $1.88 million. That's a difference of $2.1 million. That's what people's emotions have cost them. And guys, there's a lot, I've seen in our community, we did surveys recently, there are a lot of multi-millionaires in our community. And there's a lot of 20-year-olds who are just getting started. The more money you have, the more this costs you. For those of you who are young and haven't been in this game for very long, maybe 1 to 5 years, I really want this to hit home for you. This is so incredibly important. The other difference is our retirement calculator goes until death. Look at this, the 9.5% return, you have enough money to retire and to live the rest of your life. At 6.5, now, instead of $10,000 a year, you need to save an extra $13,000 per year to just be able to live the rest of your life. How different is that, guys? That's incredible. Guys, 3% difference over a 30-year period. And if you're in your 20s right now, imagine 3% over a 40-year period. It's even more money lost. Imagine working so hard all your life, day in, day out, investing all that money and walking away in retirement and not being able to have enough to even live the rest of your life. Forget about leaving money to your kids or your grandkids, not having enough to even pay your bills. The good news is markets are overpriced. That's not the good news. But the good news is if you dollar cost average even at the wrong time, here's how incredible it can be. I manually went in and did the numbers based on March and January of 2000, the peak of the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ would go on to lose 80% over the next 2.5 years. And you know what's amazing? If you dollar cost average at $100 per month, here's what it looked like. Into the QQQ, before dividends, you still made 13.22%. That means with dividends, it's pretty close to 14% returns. And the amazing part is, if you waited till the bottom of the market in August of 2002, I mean, the bottom, which means you timed it perfectly, your returns were 14.35 plus dividends, so around 15%. So the returns weren't that much different by starting with dollar cost averaging at the peak. Yes, you'd have to save the emotion of seeing it fall all the way, but that's what's incredible. Now for the S&P 500, higher dividend yield, you're at the 10.5% to 11% return if you dollar cost average starting at the peak in March of 2000. That's absolutely freaking unbelievable. It's about getting started. It's about getting that habit forming by going in there and buying every single month. Guess what, guys? I do it. I have a lump of cash, and every single month I'm buying low-cost ETFs and stocks that make sense to me. And I don't watch them because when you're out there, it's not about guessing where the market's going to be. It's about knowing that you have to get the habit of buying month in and month out for the rest of your life. Now, guys, the thing is, you might miss out opportunities like the recent NVIDIAs and all these other companies that have gone up. But that's the great news. We don't believe you're going to miss out on those. Even if you're only buying ETFs right now, you might be leaving life-changing money on the table. Our channel is here to teach a process of how to look at companies. I will never ever say buying the S&P or QQQ in the long run is bad. If you want to match the market and beat 99% of those fancy Harvard MBA douchebags, it's a great move. But here's the trap. you're going to ignore individual stocks that can massively boost your returns. Look at Meta in 2022. It went from $400 down to 88 and skyrocketed back up to 600 now. Everyone thought it was dead, but revenue was still growing, profits were still growing, but people were panicking about their $10 billion a year they were spending on the metaverse. I set a dollar cost averaging sub 250 all the way, and I got lucky to buy the low of November 4th, 2022 at $88 per share. That's what dollar cost averaging the great companies can do for you. That's what we teach here. How to think differently and spot the mispricings that are everywhere in the market. People called me crazy back then. Go look at the videos about Meta. Look at every single time I bought stocks, people were like, you're crazy for buying that stock. Okay. Sounds good. I always talk about the tech CEO in 2012 who told me I was foolish for buying Microsoft because it was a dead company. And I told him, but if you can get Microsoft for free with $50 billion in the bank, you would do it. He said, no, I wouldn't even do it then. That's how crazy people get. So if you're serious about investing smarter, you need to check out our community because a single great stock pick can change your financial future. I love buying individual stocks. I also like the security of buying ETFs. I understand where I am in my career and where I am financially. 2025 could be a big bear market, no bear market, minor bear market. We have no idea. So far, it's been quite the financial roller coaster, but who cares? We have a plan no matter what we do. The market's overpriced. Risks are everywhere. And most people, they sleepwalk into financial trouble, but not us. In the Everything Money community, we don't just survive downturns. We feast on them. Think of it this way. If you're Chipotle, think about the best thing in the world you'd like to buy. Chipotle bowl, clothes, whatever it is. If their prices fell in half, would you cry? Would you run away? Would you stop buying them? Of course not. You buy more. Just this weekend, I was in Georgia with my brother-in-law. And the market, it was Friday, the market was down a lot. He goes, oh, you worried? I'm like, no. And he doesn't know what I do really. And I said, he goes, you don't like it? You don't like it when the market's down? I'm like, Dave, let me ask you a question. He goes, sure. I go, when your favorite thing in the world goes on sale, do you buy more of it or less of it? He goes, well, I buy more of it. I go, no different. He goes, oh, okay. I mean, that's what I said to him. Who knows if it really sank with him? But that's the way I look at things. And when the market tanks, which it will, we don't panic. We sit there and take it as the opportunity that we know to look like 10, 15, 20 years from now. We're analyzing and we're making smart, principle-driven investments. If you want that mindset, you gotta join us. $7 gets you 7 days of access to our stock analyzer tool, but most importantly, our community that thrives in every market. So click below, start investing with logic, not fear. Thank you for your time.